Hello, hello, hello. I hope you are doing super duper well today. If you are new here, my name is Alex, and on this channel we talk about philosophy and such, mostly philosophy. This video is going to be very different than our usual ones because I went to Japan, so I figured I'd talk about that. First things first, I just have to shout out that I absolutely loved Japan. It was so amazing, and if I could, I would move there in a heartbeat. It was fantastic. The food, the people, the public transportation, literally everything. 7-Elevens, amazing egg salad sandwiches, every single thing. It was just so beautiful and wonderful, and if you ever get the opportunity to go, I would highly suggest it. I stayed in the Shibuya area of Tokyo, and it was utterly amazing. Just amazing. I'm not even sure where to start with this, actually. For those of you who don't know,
I'm from Michigan.
I am from Michigan, and so the absolute worst part about the entire trip was including taxis and waiting in the airport and all of that goodness. The entire traveling time took about 24 hours. If physics could at all make it possible to travel from Michigan to Japan without flying or having 24 hours of totally just like commute, I would absolutely love that. So scientists, please get on that. But I'm getting completely sidetracked here. That was just a fairly large part of the trip. A total of 48 hours of travel. It was bad, okay? But moving on. Funny enough, this year actually turned out to be one of the hottest and longest summers in Japan ever recorded. And as someone who stays inside very, very often, that was a shock to my system. It was about 90 degrees every single day during the 12 days I was there, other than like the 2 rainy days where it was like a nice, cool 78, maybe 82. I don't know. It was still very, very hot. I was sweating bullets. And so with that in mind, I would really recommend taking public transportation at any given moment possible. Even a 20-minute walk is like walking through hell. It was so dang hot. This is why you will actually see people with umbrellas or personal fans. Out of the 15 tips to traveling to Japan videos that I watched, not a single freaking one said, hey, bring an umbrella for the sun or a personal fan. You know, a little fan that you hold like this and it spins right in your face. The funniest part about the Japanese culture of clothing and fashion, in that it was extremely hot every single day, is that they are a very modest country. You do not see people in tank tops or itty bitty short shorts or like super cropped tops. None of that. You almost always have your shoulders covered, your tattoos covered, whatever it may be, you're covered. And so beautifully enough, the culture there looks a lot different. You see people in really oversized, baggy clothes, and I just have to shout out, I'm so glad that that's what I packed. But I didn't realize that with baggy clothes, you get wind. You get things not touching your sticky, icky body. I don't know if you know this, but I actually do have tattoos that I need to cover. I'm not sure where the camera is at in terms of catching my belly, but I have an entire stomach tattoo that you can generally see when I'm in a crop top. And then if I'm in a tank top or a little halter thing, I actually have an entire back tattoo from here to here. And so that is a shock to most people in Japan. They generally don't see that. If you watch any videos on tips on traveling there, a lot of them actually say cover that shit up because it's very dangerous. But because there have been so many tourists and many people of all over the world coming to Japan, it is not a big deal. You will not be looked at like you are in a gang or the gang. But for the most part, from my own father, he said, always just get your tattoos in places where you can cover them up. Easy peasy. And so yeah, I actually have a lot of tattoos, but they're hidden. You can't see them. It's a secret. Completely sidetracking here. If you are curious to get a back tattoo, I'm just gonna say right here, right now, you never actually see it yourself. I personally often forget that my entire back is tattooed. And so when I was, in the layover in Dallas, this woman is putting on her shoes next to me and she's like, I couldn't help but notice that you have a back tattoo. What is it? And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I do. Thank you for noticing. It's there. But this is not at all something that you are going to run into in Japan. People don't really talk to strangers. Talking to strangers is unheard of, pretty much. Especially if you compare it to people in Michigan, where we're just like, we got the 10-5 rule. If you're in 10 feet of a person, you make eye contact and smile. If you're in 5 feet of a person, you say, hello, how are you? How is your day going? And you don't really answer. You say, thank you, good. How about you? And you just keep walking. Is commonality here. And so to go from Michigan, where people are all up in your business and talking to you and smiling at you and making eye contact, to going to Japan, you might be surprised to find that people don't like it when you look them in the eyes. They're kind of seemingly confused, like, are you talking to me? Are we about to have an interaction? One of my absolute favorite points of culture difference in Japan is that there is absolutely no tipping. Tipping can actually be seen as rude somehow, for some reason. I don't know. I read it somewhere. But anyways, what makes the tipping culture or no tipping culture in Japan absolutely so awesome is that it truly points out the complete benevolence that there is in just like the human being, in the service industry. Yes, of course, if you're going shopping, people are going to be all like up your butt about buying their stuff, but like I think you'd get that literally anywhere. But in restaurants or bars or wherever it may be, people are so freaking polite and nice and amazing, and they're not doing it for tips. They are not doing it for tips. They're likely doing it for continued patronage. That is definitely not how you say that. And so in the truest sense, it's just beautiful, peaceful. I just want to be nice. I want to, the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated and not to get their money, not to get a big old tip, not to anything of that nature. Whereas here, in Michigan, people are overly nice, overly apologetic, or overly whatever the H to get a big tip. The waiter will come to your table and say, how is it? How is everything doing? Is it delicious? And then, every like 5 minutes or something. Maybe not while you're eating. Some waiters are terrible about that. I don't know. But in Japan, your waiter actually never comes to you. You have to go, like, sumimasen, and get them to come to you, or actually go up and say what you want to order, or maybe there's a little phone app amazingness. But no, they never actually come to your table and be like, so what do you want? Have you decided yet? What do you want for drinks? Blah, 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 blah. No, it's beautiful. It's very, very different. Very different. Another huge cultural difference between where I am from, Michigan, but probably all over America and other Western areas, and Japan, is that when you are on public transportation, talking on the phone is not strictly prohibited, but there are signs to say not to do it. Don't talk on the phone. If anything, don't talk at all. Be peaceful. Be mindful of your surroundings. Be courteous to other people versus talking on the phone super loud, bugging strangers, telling them your entire life story, or literally playing music from your phone, or like in a movie where someone's got a boombox. That does not happen. People in Japan are so courteous of other people around them that they actually are probably the quietest country that I've ever been to. I've only ever been to the 2 countries. But from my experience in America, where I live in Michigan, I have lived in Chicago for a month, in Oregon for a month. I've been to Kentucky for a good while. I've been to California for a good while. And all of them are generally the exact same place when it comes to American culture, where people are pretty self-centered, but it is a individualistic culture. We pretty much care about ourselves, or we're driving around, we're looking out for number one, that's literally a saying. But everywhere I have ever gone to and Colorado. I was in Colorado for a good while too. But either way, every single place I've ever been to in America, you can see that we live in a very individualistic culture where we're always looking out for number one, and that's ourselves. And that's why we have to basically beat into the children's brains the golden rule. Don't treat others how you don't want to be treated. Treat others how you want to be treated. So on, so forth. Whereas in Japan, they have a communal culture, a community culture, to where it's all about the environment of everybody, not just yourself, everybody. So you want to, respect. You want to respect every single person as if they're your own family member, probably, is a good analogy there. And so in a community culture, you want to respect every single person as if they would impede on you, you would impede on them. No, we are courteous. And I absolutely love that. I love that so much. I cannot put it into words how beautiful the culture in Japan is. It's just amazing. Another fantastic cultural difference that might be a little silly, I don't know, but it is the cartoons. There's cartoons everywhere in Japan. Even one day I was walking down the street looking for a restaurant to eat some dinner, and I passed a firehouse, and what, lo and behold, is in like a shadow box case outside of the firehouse? A bunch of just posters, including an anime firefighter PSA. I have no idea what it said. I didn't whip out Google Translate, but it was an anime firefighters on a firehouse. I was gobsmacked. But absolutely everywhere, even on like foods, or like as a what's it called, like an area, province, they have their own like mascots, or like train stations have mascots. Every single place you go, on crackers, on every single thing almost, there are little chibi cartoons, little kawaii cartoons, anime characters everywhere. Here in America, we don't have that. It might blow your mind to know this, but it is boring. So boring. I live in, Michigan, in a very much so artist-centric city. And so we have murals and sculptures, and a lot of murals and sculptures like everywhere. But if you pass a firehouse, you're not gonna see anime firefighters on it. If you go to a bus station, there's not a mascot for the bus station. Our city doesn't even have a mascot, other than, I don't know if I want to tell you exactly the city I live in, okay? Let's be honest. One of the biggest tourist attractions that I did while I was in Japan was go to Shibuya's Crossing. And if you ever see like classic things of Japan, like Tokyo Drift, what's it called? Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift. They do a huge drift through the Shibuya Square where you often see a million people crossing the street, you know, this way, kitty corner, like literally every single way across like 7 lanes of traffic. But it's fantastic to know that it is a shopping center. So I crossed that son of a gun like 700 times. But there is seriously a lot of people, like a lot of people crossing the street all at the same time. And how do we do this without having a huge danger problem? By being courteous and mindful of your neighbor and just the nicest people ever. But from experience, every single person in Japan is amazingly nice. And of course there might be the one-off, but I never experienced that. Not one person was mean. Unless you include a restaurant basically saying Japanese people only. But I honestly think that this is because that they didn't have any people who spoke English and didn't want to deal with the whole like translator app situation. But yeah, there are restaurants in Japan that are Japanese people only. I've actually heard like anecdotes on people who are Japanese and another race who have lived in Japan like their whole life, and even they have an issue going to these restaurants. But that's got to be the only thing that's not, you know, nice and courteous and the absolute most pleasant experience. So yeah, outside of that is perfectly amazing. I want to live there so badly. Another huge tourist attraction that I did with a coworker of mine was go to a hot pot restaurant where they serve the hot pot as a gelatinous shape of a teddy bear. A teddy bear hot pot restaurant, to where you're given a super hot pot filled with like this much liquid. The broth is in the shape of a teddy bear, and it was the most beautifulest thing. I got a Szechuan, and then my friend got like a chicken broth flavor. So mine was pink and theirs was brown. It was so beautiful. Along with the hot pot, what you got was this beautiful plate, just like the fanciest plating you'd ever seen of raw chicken, and then you go up to like a buffet style to get like spices, sauces, whatever it may be, and then you also get a plate of vegetables. You also get like a small instruction manual that says like take all the photos you want before turning on the table stove, because the bear will melt quickly, and I can attest to this. It melts very quickly. But it was so fun, so beautiful, and probably like the kitschiest tourist attraction that I did the entire time I was there. Long story short, it was freaking delicious. My only complaint would be that they gave you like this much noodles, and I'm a noodle head myself. I like a lot of noodles, but there were so many veggies and chicken and everything to eat. It really did not bother me that there were not many noodles. But this sort of cooking style with a table with a stove on it is actually incredibly common from what I could tell. We also got something called shabu shabu, which is like super thinly sliced meat, and you get like a bunch of different trays where all the meats are laid out very perfectly, and then a huge plate of vegetables, almost like too many vegetables to even eat, fathom. And then what you do is you have this boiling pot of broth, and you just put everything you want in it. You could cook a couple little pieces of meat at a time, all the vegetables at once, literally however you want to do it, because it's all you. It's on you to cook every single thing. And I absolutely love that. That is almost not at all a thing in Michigan. I mean, we have like hibachi grills where they will cook in front of you, and we have some Korean places with a hot pot type of setup, but it is not at all common and one of the most expensive ways to eat, at least in Michigan. In other places where like the Asian culture is much more prominent, maybe it's more common and entirely less expensive, but here it is like a treat. And maybe it is there too, but just like sushi, over here it is entirely way too expensive if you are a sushi fanatic just like myself. And over in Japan it's basically like a hamburger joint. You can have the really dirt cheap ones or the really, really expensive ones. It all depends on what you're willing to pay, I guess. My number one suggestion for all of you beef eaters out there is that when you go to Japan, you have to get Wagyu beef. You have to absolutely get it. And funny enough, there are cows that are massaged and fed beer, and one of the most delicious beef dishes you will ever have in your entire life. Oh my gosh. But at the same time, everybody knows about the Wagyu beef and how heavenly it is. What very few people probably know is the fried chicken. Did you know that Japan is famous for fried chicken? Oh my goodness gracious. I probably ordered fried chicken in the 12 days I was there like 5 times. Maybe more. I don't know if you've ever gone to Popeyes, but like the whole cayenne pepper, white pepper, yummy goodness is also the absolute best way to eat it. But if you are eating fried chicken that has absolutely no flavor besides besides salt and pepper, you're doing it wrong. It's wrong. It's not wrong, but it's not nearly as good. That is for dang sure. For hot dang sure. Okay. As this is a philosophical channel, I do want to point out some key concepts here, be it talking about benevolence or being courteous or whatever it is. We've talked about that. Now I want to talk about the tourism of it all. You know, if you are not Japanese and you go to Japan, or literally anywhere in the world, if you are traveling the world, there is one very important thing to know and to understand and to avoid. And that is ethnocentrism, also known as sociocentrism. And this is basically where you believe everything about your culture or sociological standpoint is better than anyone else's, superior to anyone else's. And this is wrong. This is wrong. And truly what ethnocentrism is that you see other cultures as inferior, that you see other practices in other places as weird or wrong, morally wrong, whatever the negative word choice you want to use, when the real word is different. It's just different. And so if you want to travel the world and be respectful and appreciative, you have to know what ethnocentrism is. And truly, you have to know from your own background, you have a perspective that has grown out of your own culture and area, your sociological area. And so if you use this as a lens to judge other cultures, you're traveling the world wrong. You're just doing it wrong because you cannot judge through the lens of your own culture. You have to open your mind and see maybe people in other places do other different things. Maybe that's actually even better.
I pledge to always keep an open mind and an open heart.
But the complete opposite of this is xenocentrism, to where you believe your own culture is inferior to others. And as an American, I would say that sounds about right. I'm not a fan of a lot of cultural differences in the ways of how Americans do things. We are entirely too capitalistic, or too capitalistic. It all really boils down to that. We all want to have big tips and big races and get big houses and get all the money and all the blah, 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 blah. So it does go 2 different ways. You can think your own culture is superior or inferior, but the best thing to note here is it's different. Just different. From helpfulprofessor.com, ethnocentrism can be defined as the belief that your culture is natural and correct, while other people's cultures are incorrect, unnatural, or inferior. Ethnocentrism can be a contributing factor to prejudice, racism, and xenophobia, in all of these instances, you're considering yourself and your culture to be the best compared to all others. Examples include judging others' countries' diets, expecting others to speak English, thinking you don't have an accent, judging cultural dress, colonial imperialism, and assimilationism. And so, in other words, if you think people come to America and assimilate to our culture, you're a racist. You're not cool. Don't do that. I like to say that America is one big, beautiful, boiling pot of culture, and we can just stir it all up. But that's literally what I was raised to believe. I guess from TV, movies, books. We're one big melting pot, right? And so if you say something like, "Why aren't you speaking English?" It's because America doesn't have a national flippin' language. You doink? And so I genuinely appreciate other people who appreciate other people's cultures, or anything in that sort of line, literally at all. But it is important to know cultural relativism, the two sides of it, that other people can have completely different views, and it's important to not make moral judgments. But at the same time, you should use your moral judgment. I don't know if YouTube's gonna really like the examples that come with that, but you can do some digging. Generally has to do with like the nether regions and what cultures can do with knives, to which is not cool. It's not cool. But then again, YouTube is not a fan of educating the public when it comes to gross stuff. Another hugely popular example of cultural relativism and ethnocentrism is one that I found from Maricopa Community Colleges. I've actually heard this example a million times, but I like to give people credit where credit is due if I can find some credit to give. But the example is this. In places like Madagascar, they will have a huge celebration to celebrate the dead. And what this can include is taking out the dead to party with them. Right? And that might seem crazy. Other countries actually might see that as completely disrespecting the fallen. But it is not your place to judge this as bad. It is only in instances where we are affecting the frickin', like the nether regions of other human beings. And, seeing humans take the autonomy of other human beings, and then we can say, okay, that might be bad. Like, for instance, if there's any country that has slavery, in literally 2023, we can go ahead and say that that's bad. But if there are countries that eat, insects, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. That's not gross. You might think it's gross because your culture doesn't do it. Just like, steak tartare in France, where they eat raw egg and raw beef together. This is also a thing in Japan. Not necessarily ground beef or, the exact same way that they do it in France, but eating raw egg or raw beef or raw chicken or raw horse. It is a thing in Japan, and it is not bad. It's not bad. The only instances where we can say it is bad is if we literally go to the farm and we find that they're doing weird stuff to the animals, like we do in America. Then maybe we can say that's not good. Just saying. From a very, very amazing and helpful graphic from North Carolina State University, I actually wanted to give you some suggestions on how to exactly avoid ethnocentrism when you are traveling the world, or even traveling states in America, maybe even to Canada. Things are totally different anywhere you go, maybe even one town over. If you're in like the rural and you go to the city, things can be very different. And so how do we accept these differences and not judge them to be inferior to our own cultural practice? How do we do this? First, We have our emotional process, which includes empathy, tolerance of ambiguity, and unprejudiceness and willing to learn, aka flexibility in how we might judge. The key word here is to not judge, but to just be open to learning and empathetic to understanding that someone else or another culture is different. Right. The next step is behavior, where we have the ability to communicate, communication control, awareness of dissent, aka a difference in opinions, literally just different. Be aware people are different than you. Synergy awareness and target orientation. And the last step in this is our knowledge. And this includes cultural knowledge, knowledge of foreign languages, and polycentricism. And so you probably have heard this if you're traveling or looking to travel or watch TV. But if you are going to a place where they speak a different language, I would highly suggest you learn some basic phrases. I actually picked up a basic phrase book and did a terrible job at learning anything. But as soon as I got there, I picked up on a lot of things, to which is, if you need a waiter, you have to flag them down. And there's one word to do it. You learn that word, and then you're set for all restaurants. You learn just the little things that will help you get by, and so you are not disrupting the cultural norm. If you watch IT Crowd in the episode The Red Door, where Jen wants to open the red door, the other two main characters, Chris O'Dowd and Richard Ayoade, are like, No.
I know that the place looks like a bit of a mess, but it's actually a very delicate ecosystem. Everything is connected. It's like the rainforest.
Not the rain.
You change one thing, even the tiniest bit, and the whole rainforest dies.
You don't want to burn down the rainforest, Jen. Why on earth would you want to come into an area and impede on the common practices of that area? You do not want to impede anything. You want to be courteous and aware and empathetic to what is the actual social norm of that area. So, very great example of all of this is just go watch the IT Crowd Red Door episode and you will learn why you don't mess with things, okay? We have come to the end of this here episode, and I truly hope you appreciate hearing about my experience, looking at the pretty pictures, and learning about how to respect other people's cultures, because it is incredibly important to respect other people's cultures. One house to the next, you're gonna find different cultures, and especially if you live in the beautiful melting pot that is America. Right? That's the end of my story. Yeah. I'm not at all sure how to end this video other than saying thank you so much for watching. If you are all the way here to the very, very end, I truly appreciate you supporting the channel and all of your time that you spent with me. So thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu. So much. I really, really appreciate you. I'm 10,000% sure that my Japanese is terrible. Spent most of my life learning French, and I'm actually trying to learn German. So if my pronunciation is bad, just I'm so sorry. If you have ever gone to Tokyo or Japan, anywhere in it, I would absolutely love to hear about your experience and where you're from versus the culture. What did you think of all the differences? Or if you've ever gone anywhere else in the world with the cultural differences between your hometown or where you live and where you went, I would absolutely love to hear about it. I actually almost went into sociology or anthropology because I love the human being so much. But, the human condition kind of got me, pulls my heartstrings. And so philosophy is my thing, or, existentialism is my thing, phenomenology, whatever it may be. I love seeing how humans act and behave. That probably sounds weird. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really, really appreciate you staying all the way to the end. Yeah, thank you. Again, not sure how to end the video, so I'm just gonna stop. Thank you so much again, and I hope you have a pleasant rest of your day. Super duper lovely, and I hope to see you on the next one. Alright, bye. I love you.
For one of these days that will never end, that just seem to spend for hours on end, switching back and forth, 10-inch, 67-inch, 4-inch, 4K, 1080p. You're wasting your time, not making friends. You don't understand, where did they all go? Now what you have to say, it's stuff for all.